Wonderful to see so many of you here. I can't thank you enough. I'm absolutely delighted. I hope you're enjoying your lunch. It's great seeing students and so many members of our college community. This is really a very special day for us. You know, during my listening tour and in my many conversations with virtually all of you and others, one of the themes that just became so clear is that all of us share a deep commitment to student success, student degree completion, transfer, students realizing their goals. I think it's the common denominator that ties all of us together, regardless of our roles here. We all play a role, and we all believe strongly in our students, and they are our greatest of many points of pride. And so it's very clear that all of us believe that continuing to improve upon the success of our students is probably our #1 priority, and is something we want to really focus on as we try to move to the next level of excellence as a truly inspirational institution. And I've been speaking with you in various town hall meetings and in other meetings about my experience with Achieving the Dream. The college that I came from, Community College of Beaver County near Pittsburgh, has been a long-standing member of Achieving the Dream. When I arrived, they were very much in the process of years of commitment to this work, and we became what's called an Achieving the Dream Leader College. And I saw firsthand, through my own personal involvement, how exceedingly helpful the organization was in our being able to work together to use data and best practices to really help us establish goals that are realistic but challenging and achieve continuous improvement. And so with your support, we have invited Dr. Karen Stout to be here today, and it's a great honor for me to introduce her. She is president and CEO of Achieving the Dream, which we often refer to as ATD. And Achieving the Dream, in fact, is the nation's largest movement to improve success for all students, especially, and very importantly for us, low-income students, students of color, students from traditionally underrepresented groups. Through ATD, Dr. Stout leads a network of institutions that are building their capacity to enable more students to complete their education with a credential that has value. ATD's institutional learning experience focuses on data and technology, holistic student supports, equity, open educational resources, leadership, teaching, and learning. Dr. Stout's been recognized nationally for her achievements at Achieving the Dream, and also at Montgomery County Community College in Pennsylvania, not too far from Philadelphia, where I first met her as a member of the Pennsylvania Community College Council of Presidents. Karen served as MICO's president for 15 years before joining Achieving the Dream in 2015. She was a leading member, I can tell you, of the Pennsylvania Commission for Community Colleges Council of Presidents. She was universally admired for her intellect, leadership skills, and her strong record of accomplishment at MICO and really throughout the nation. She was named American Association for Women in Community Colleges Woman of the Year. She was chosen by Washington Monthly as one of the 16 most innovative higher education leaders among many other honors and recognitions. And Karen serves on several national boards, including the College Promise National Advisory Board, and she's a faculty contributor and mentor for the Aspen Institute Presidential Fellow for Community College Excellence. So today, Dr. Stout will discuss Achieving the Dream and how our membership and involvement can assist Hudson County Community College in moving to the next level in student success, transfer, and degree completion, as well as the process and expectations for joining and participating in Achieving the Dream, because there are expectations. This is work. And so she's going to offer a presentation, and I told her we have time. So, time is actually not an issue. I hope you can stay for 90 minutes if required. This is such an important process and decision for us. And then after her presentation, we'll welcome questions and discussion. And then following this meeting, members of our President's Executive Council will meet with Karen for a more detailed discussion of the membership expectations. And then I'll be asking for input from the All College Council and from all of you, the entire college community, regarding our decision about joining. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me now in welcoming Dr. Karen Stout.
Well, thank you. It's really an honor to be here today. I can say it's standing room only, so thank you for that. But I'm worried about you standing through the entire presentation, so maybe we'll be able to find some seats for everybody. I want to thank Dr. Reber for that wonderful introduction and just say how honored I am to be at Hudson County Community College. This is my first time on your campus. And you know, something that Dr. Reber didn't say is that early in my community college career, I worked at Camden County College in New Jersey for about 8 years. In varying roles, my title constantly changed. I said I was the vice president of miscellanea, but it seemed to be that whatever the president needed at that particular time to attend to, I got assigned that. So one of the things that I led at Camden County College was the information technology area, and I remember saying to the president when she said, "I'm going to give IT to you," I said, "I don't know anything about technology," and you might see that on display here. And she said, "That's okay, because we don't have technology challenges, we have planning and communication challenges with technology." And so I jumped in and took that on. The title of my presentation is Leading and Learning, Learning and Leading, because I really look at this work, this urgent work around supporting student success as being a learning journey. It's a learning journey for us nationally. It's a learning journey for the colleges that engage in achieving the dream, because this work plays out differently at each college, because the students at community colleges are different depending on what college we're working with. I've been president of Achieving the Dream now for 3.5 years. Dr. Reber mentioned that I was president at Montgomery outside of Philadelphia. Montgomery was also an Achieving the Dream college, and that's when I really thought, when the opening came up at Achieving the Dream to be the president, the work was so influential in our student success journey at Montgomery that I really wanted to see whether we could spread the work of ATD a little bit more broadly, and we've done that. So I'm hoping today to frame the student success conversation. What is it? To speak to Achieving the Dream, to talk to the challenges around really meeting the potential that we have in front of us around student success outcomes. Talk about some of the results in some of our Achieving the Dream colleges, and frame what I think is a next generation of student success work, and offer a call to action. At the end of the presentation, I'd love to have a real deep engagement with questions and answers. I have 3 videos embedded in the presentation. This is where I'm a little worried about the technology, but we have a superb technology support team here. And the videos range, the first one's 8 minutes, so it is a little long, but I think it's an important one. And then the other 2 are 3 minutes each, just to give you a quick preview. So why are we here? Why is Hudson County Community College important? Anybody want to pop up why is Hudson County Community College important? How about from a student first?
We change lives.
You change lives. And why is that important? Yeah, anybody? I'm an idiot. Why is that important?
Because people want a better life.
And why is that important?
Because when people get a better life, they do better things and help other people.
So we're talking about transformation of lives. We're talking about economic and social mobility. We're talking about the transformational power of a successful student. Why else is Hudson County important? New voice.
We're in one of the most multi-ethnic colleges in the world. So
And-
we have an opportunity, which is a great opportunity to have a little influence beyond.
So you're a talent pipeline
Right.
for a hub, an important hub of community activity. And one of the things that I love about community colleges is indeed our localness. That's why this work, when I talk about achieving the dream, it's not a cookie cutter approach that we use with every institution. Every institution in the network is different. So we have 240 community colleges in the network. 35 of them are tribal colleges. Many are urban, some are suburban, many are rural. But the localness, the importance of the localness of our work is pretty much the same for every community college. It just plays out differently. So that's pretty good about why we're here. Our students have big dreams. So does any student want to say why you're here? What's your dream? What are you hoping to accomplish here at Hudson County Community College?
To be a teacher.
You want to be a teacher. Who else? Others? Oh, come on. Yes? You want to be a nurse? Yes?
Culinary.
Culinary. Career in culinary. Yes? Social worker. I can already see the ripple effect, right? Most community college students across the country, ranges from 60 to 90%, end up staying in the region where they're educated. And they become that region's nurses and doctors and educators and legislators and dental hygienists and culinary chefs and managers of big hospitality operations and on and on and on. So our students have big dreams. When I look at the data around those big dreams and the work of community colleges, the data isn't necessarily reflective of, I think, where we can be as a sector in supporting our students. So we can argue with the data, and most Achieving the Dream colleges do argue with the data, and that's okay. But I'm going to use some data from the National Student Clearinghouse just to paint a picture. And that's national data that says that less than 4 of 10 of students that begin in community colleges leave the community college 6 years later with a credential that has value. Less than 4 of 10. And we go with the dream big. How many students think right now you're going to transfer to a 4-year college or university? Okay, so right, so most of the students in the room look like transfers in their dream. More than 86% of community college students come to community colleges wanting to transfer. 6 years later, 15% actually transfer. You see the gap? There's a dream gap. And that's the gap that the work of Achieving the Dream really works with colleges to get at, to identify and work with. So we talked about the ripple effect of the work of the students in this room. We talked about the ripple effect of a credential that has labor market value on families. We talked about the ripple effect of your presence in this community. And the idea that you are indeed a talent pipeline. This is not easy work. The work that the students are engaged in the classroom and your learning journey is not easy work. The work of the institution itself, it's not easy work. Our mission as community colleges, as you know, is very unique. And there are enormous expectations for us. And those expectations, I think, are captured very well by this quote from Kevin Doherty, who's at the Community College Research Center. Does anybody know of the Community College Research Center? Okay, really groundbreaking work around community college student outcomes and doing purely academic research on community colleges. So the health of our country rests on the collective success of America's community colleges. The health of this community rests on the health of Hudson County Community College. And I'm making a case that it's the health of the student success outcomes here. And every organization kind of has an S curve, meaning You have a dream, you climb into the dream, you fight into the dream, you climb through the dream, you reach the dream, and then you're recreating the next dream. And the community college movement is going through that kind of S-curve. And it's taken a while for us to understand that access alone is not going to improve a student's life or the life of the community, that it has to be a journey of access and success. So a lot of times people will say to me, but there's so many things that we're asked to do as community colleges. We are being asked to do more with less. We're being asked to be bold and we have little support. We're being asked to build the local community with no support to build the local community. We're being asked to graduate more students on top of that. And on top of that, we're being asked to build the workforce and keep the promise of the open door access community college alive and keep the country's competitive edge. That's a lot of pressure on the community college sector. I like this slide. It's a picture that I took last year while hiking through Sedona. And as soon as I saw this sign, I thought, I have to take this picture, and hopefully I can use it in a presentation. To me, it captures kind of where we are right now as we are moving into this student success work. We're at a crossroads, and it's not easy work. For some colleges, it's very difficult. For other colleges, it's an extreme lift. It depends on what your data says about your student success journey. But what's really powerful to me about this is that I had no option but to decide which route to take. I couldn't go back. I needed to move forward and make a decision to kind of go into that bold territory. Now, I did not take the extreme route. I took the difficult route. And that I think the extreme, when I looked at it, I couldn't have done it. But most institutions are taking a difficult route. So let me ask you a couple of questions. This is a slide from Noel Tichy, who's a University of Michigan professor, talks about 3 zones around something called the learning zone. So in learning, if you think about it as a student, when you walk in the first day of class, are you, or your first day at Hudson County Community College, when you walked into class, were you in the panic zone, the learning zone, or the comfort zone? Panic? Panic zone. And did your instructors do anything to move you into a learning zone? Can we describe what did your faculty member do that very first day to move you into a learning zone? You know, in comfort zone is an area where, you already know and you're comfortable. We want, to continue to grow, we want to be in that learning zone. But we don't want to be in the panic zone. Because when you're in the panic zone, you automatically usually go back to the comfort zone and then you really hunker in. So as an individual, let's talk about the student. Can anybody give one technique that a faculty member used to move you from the panic zone to the learning zone? Yes?
Ask us how we learn.
Asked you how you learned. So they asked you personally, what's the best way that you learn?
Yeah, like pictures or reading or listening.
Excellent. Pictures, reading, or listening. And how did that make you feel when the faculty member asked you that?
Feel comfortable.
You felt comfortable. You were ready to learn. Okay? You felt valued. You had a sense of belonging. Anybody else? Any other student want to give an example? Yes?
Most concepts they teach themselves and give another kind of their description of who they are, where they come from, to create that another comfortable zone.
Excellent. They told their personal story, right? They told their personal story and showed a little bit of vulnerability, which was really, really important, right? That's really a good one. One other technique that you've seen a faculty member use to help you as a student. Anybody else? Sometimes it's as simple as after the first day, the professor knowing every student's name. And you'd be surprised at how many community college faculty don't make that exceptional effort to, after the first day of classes, know every student's name. So sometimes it's small things. As an organization, Organizations also have panic zones, learning zones, and comfort zone. So Hudson County Community College, we're talking about working to improve student success outcomes. What makes you uncomfortable when we start talking about student success outcomes and looking at improving student success outcomes? Anything make you uncomfortable? Yes?
Being compared to other institutions that are just so,
Being compared to other institutions that are dissimilar. What if you were compared to other institutions that are similar? Would that put you more in a learning zone? Maybe, maybe. But that's a fair observation. Benchmarking against similar institutions is always really important when you start this work. I would suggest first knowing what your own data says about your own story is really important. What else makes you uncomfortable? Yes?
That other people usually determine what success is.
That other people determine what success is. Excellent. You know, when we work with Achieving the Dream Colleges, the first thing we do is we facilitate a conversation that helps you self-determine as a college community what you mean by student success. There's not a universal definition. It's contextualized by looking at the data and looking at your context. But it is important that you co-create a student success definition. And that maybe will put you in a learning zone rather than a panic zone. Yes?
Not having the proper resources?
Not having the proper resources. So we might be able to get a definition of student success. We might identify some strategies that we could deploy to accelerate student success, but we don't have the resources. Or we have to make difficult decisions about resource allocation. So those are all very valuable observations about why this work is difficult. The student success movement's not new. This is a hard slide to read, but basically this started from an accountability perspective. It made all of us uncomfortable. How many of you remember the Spellings Commission? All of a sudden, we're looked at by what our 3-year completion rates are, and that's all we were looked at by. Very uncomfortable for me as a new community college president, and actually was involved in some of the work with the Spellings Commission. But over the last 15 years, and Achieving the Dream was founded in 2004, so it's 15 years old now, there's been a lot more work around student success, and we've learned a lot more. That the definition of student success is not just about the 3-year IPEDS completion rate. It's bigger than that. I'll talk a little bit about that. So this is where ATD is in the country. So we're in 42 states, 240 colleges. I mentioned the tribal colleges. More than 4 million students are served by Achieving the Dream colleges. In New Jersey, there are a number of Achieving the Dream colleges. There's a Student Success Center that deploys some supports to the New Jersey colleges. And New Jersey in and of itself is beginning to really create a statewide agenda for student success with the tuition-free initiative and some of the new college career programs that are being talked about, work with apprenticeship programs, experiential learning, all of those kind of programs that are also very important for student success. So ATD aspires, and this is important because this is not what our original statement was about our impact, it's different. That ATD and our network colleges will help all students, so this is about taking on work that's at scale, not small interventions, all students, particularly the most underserved, can be identified by the college as to who's underserved, and that's different from college to college, to realize substantial value from their post-secondary experience and their earned credentials, which means that we're looking beyond associate degree certainly counts, but there are certificates and industry certifications that lead to substantial value. And in some cases, associate degrees in and of themselves do not lead to substantial value, but require a baccalaureate to have substantial value. So this really broadens the definition of student success. But this piece on the end, thereby strengthening their communities. And how do we measure that? And that's new work for Achieving the Dream. So we engage our colleges in an approach that is very customized and contextualized, primarily using coaching. So we deploy a leadership coach and a data coach to every one of our colleges. And those coaches help you to begin to tell your story using your data to identify where your opportunities are around student success. So I'm going to show this, I'm going to skip this, but I'm going to talk about, here's some reasons some colleges come into Achieving the Dream. These are right out of their reports to us last year. The first one is around championing equity. This particular college noticed that there were gaps in student progress and completion when they disaggregated their data. They were worried about that. They wanted to take on some strategies to eliminate the achievement gaps. The second college came into Achieving the Dream because they were doing a lot of work around student success, but none of the initiatives were connected to each other. They didn't have a framework to pull the work together, and they needed a cohesive, integrating approach to the work. So they were using ATD for that. And the third one came in because they really didn't have a data infrastructure. They needed to better understand their data, the quality of the data, and then what that data, the insights that they could gain from that data. But there are other reasons that colleges come into Achieving the Dream. How many of you have heard of the guided pathways work? So a lot of colleges are starting and jumping into guided pathways, and they're realizing, oh, we really don't know how to do this. We need some support. Colleges coming into ATD. College promise programs. We can't promise access without promising success. So there's a lot of colleges now that are moving toward tuition-free experiences, but they want to make sure their students are leaving with a credential. Accreditation sometimes brings colleges into Achieving the Dream, and sometimes state policy, performance funding. Does New Jersey have a performance funding model? No, not yet. I think there are like 35 states across the country that have moved to performance funding, and that's a whole nother lecture to have as to whether those are really working or not. So I want to show you, this is an 8-minute video from a college that just came into Achieving the Dream, and it really captures why they came into Achieving the Dream. And this is a different story for every ATD college, but this will give you a flavor of what is, you know, how this, they're in their first semester of ATD work, so it's very early.
But when I get into my story, I just kind of get teary-eyed because, I mean, like you say, everybody has a different story, but everybody has one. My parents died early. By the time I was 10, I had lost both my mother, my father, and my brother. By the time I was 12, I had my first baby. By the time I was 13, I had my second. I dropped out of school in the 9th grade. I ran the streets. By the time I was 15, I got a job as a waitress. I cooked until I was 18. I decided to go to Job Corps. I was in a deep depression. And my son, my baby boy, he said, Mom, why don't you just go back to school? Just go back to school. Ain't nothing else to do. You work all the time anyway. That was what he told me. And I did. And here I sit at 36 years old, a GED graduate from Hudson Community College, and I'm now working on my associate's degree for business administration. I can't wait to see what's ahead of me. I'm so ready.
Hello, my name is Jenna Blake, and I am a 2017 graduate of Hudson Community College. I am proud to say that I received my associate's degree in psychology. However, my journey to success was a little bit bumpy at first. My first semester at HCCC, I actually failed, and I took a 2-year hiatus before coming back and mustering enough courage to seek real success here. It was here at HCCC that I finally established my home. I felt like it was my place that was going to help me pursue a confident future and better opportunities for myself.
Hearing from these amazing students is a great reminder of the importance of the work we do at Hartford Community College. My name is Beth Mosser. Jenny Towner and I are very proud to be the co-chairs for Achieving the Dream at HCC. Throughout this video, we will talk about the journey that led us to this exciting development in our college's history. Over the past year, we had the opportunity to start an intentional process of self-examination to better understand how we can impact student success on a wider scale.
Through the President's Speaker Series, we were able to learn from experts in the field of higher education about emerging issues as they relate to education reform. With this momentum, we began our official membership with Achieving the Dream this past June at the Kickoff Institute in Cleveland, Ohio.
Achieving the Dream provides a comprehensive framework for us to incorporate in our strategic plan and throughout our operations, with the ultimate goal of helping more students achieve their academic and career aspirations. As this graphic shows, ATD will fuel the development of our strategic plan and the resulting operational plans that guide our work across the college.
The Achieving the Dream model is comprised of 7 capacity areas: teaching and learning, engagement and communication, strategy and planning, policies and practices, leadership and vision, data and technology, and equity. This framework has provided the context for Achieving the Dream institutions to improve student outcomes for success. At Harvard, this framework will allow us to build upon the findings from Campus Works about how we can enhance the student experience.
Howdy, my name is Zachary Escobar. You may recognize me from the State and the College address. When I think of my experience here at HCC, I think of all the advisors, teachers, professors, students, and friends that I've made that help me understand what I want to do with my degree. When I think of
I told you that I lacked technology experience. It's the student stories in this video that make it very powerful from my perspective.
when I think of my experience here, I really do think of how much forward I'm looking to using my degree in the real world. I think HCC is helping me push that dream forward.
Achieving the Dream will allow us to unify the efforts we have been pursuing in an intentional way to result
Okay, so
more degrees and credentials awarded each year. The importance of higher education cannot be understated when it comes to the economic opportunities for our students.
all right, maybe we have a couple of other videos, so I will just fill in the blanks on this one. The important piece of this is that Harvard engaged in ATD.
As you know, community colleges are at the forefront of the higher education experience for a large percent.
Okay, we'll just go back to the presentation. Yeah, how's that? So at the end of this presentation, there's really a call to action to the college community about mobilizing an approach to begin to look at the data that had surfaced in the early part of their journey in ATD, which really spoke to the number of students, degree-seeking students, that were staying on their path toward completion in aggregate and then by program, and then disaggregated by race and ethnicity, age, gender, veteran status. They had a whole a bunch of subcategories that they were disaggregating their data around. And they had a big aha. The college is very, very solid, proud of their success, but when they saw the data, were shocked at the success rates around completion of the associate degree, but also around completion of the bachelor's degree once a student transferred from Harvard. So, what we find with a lot of Achieving the Dream colleges is students come to our colleges, they accumulate credits, they don't leave with an associate degree, they transfer to a bachelor's degree institution. And we count them as a success because they've transferred out. But when we really begin to look at the data now, the National Student Clearinghouse allows us to do this, we see a number of our students leaving without any credential at all. So the worst outcome is to have a student who gains a lot of credits at the community college, more credits at the baccalaureate institution, has used up all of their financial aid, and does not leave either institution with any credential that has labor market value. So really helping colleges to dig through that and see that. And you say, well, I can't do anything about that. Hudson can't do anything about the transfer success rates. Well, you can. You can. You can work with your university partners to create stronger articulation agreements. There are a lot of best practices now around what those articulation agreements should look like. You can decide not to have an articulation agreement with a university where the student success results are low. So there are a lot of ways that you can get at that. So we also do work at Achieving the Dream in the area of innovation and connection. When you join the Achieving the Dream network, you have access to all of the best practices that are being uncovered by all the network colleges. You have access to the Dream Conference. Did anybody from Hudson ever attend the Dream? Anybody here ever attend Dream? Some non-ATD colleges do attend Dream. And a number of our learning events. And you also have an opportunity to participate in some of our innovation efforts. So we're working with 39 colleges right now in 19 states, none in New Jersey, but helping those colleges to build full degree pathways using open education resources. So students are leaving those programs without any textbook costs. So we're in the midst of evaluating that effort now. We have some work with adjunct faculty with 6 colleges on how to build stronger communities of practice for adjunct faculty to make a difference in teaching and learning. And we're getting ready to launch a big digital learning program with a number of colleges that are in our network that will be able to secure dollars from us, coming from a couple of private funders, to do work around digital learning and further engage faculty. So what have we learned? What have we learned? We've learned that interventions that aren't connected and that aren't scaled aren't yielding any returns on moving student success forward. So early in the movement, our colleges developed boutique interventions, and those interventions didn't touch enough students to make a difference. Then we were doing a lot of those in the early days. There's a new generation of developmental reform. And I don't know what the developmental education program looks like at Hudson to know where you are in that journey. But many of our colleges are moving toward automatic. It's back to the future. I think about my early days I started at a community college as an admissions officer, which meant that I was evaluating transcripts and doing high school tours and working on placement testing. But in the early days, we really didn't have the placement testing. Students went into college level courses and they either, swam or not. Then we started to build all of these testing processes and put barriers in front of students, thinking that particular test determined whether a student was college ready or not. When we know, do you use Accuplacer here? When we know Accuplacer was designed as one instrument to measure whether a student could succeed in a college level course, and it doesn't look at anything that's non-cognitive, right? Like motivation or grit or resilience. So anyway, a lot of colleges now are moving toward placing students in college level courses, using the Accuplacer results to understand where a student is, but then placing just-in-time supports in the college level courses. Not fully doing away with developmental education, but moving to another level. Redesigning our systems from entry to exit. And I'll talk about that in a second. That equity-minded design is essential from the very beginning. So our colleges would gather data and admire the disaggregated data, but not take action on the data. Leadership matters. The colleges that are seeing the best results have leadership totally focused on student success. Boards of trustees, presidents, administrative team, but most importantly, faculty. Faculty leadership and ownership matters. Faculty engagement in this work is absolutely essential. One thing I'll say is that the colleges that are seeing sustained results have presidents that have served in those institutions for 8 to 12 years. So that's how long this work to kind of get the flywheel going can take. So this is a map of what I had at Montgomery when we first got into Achieving the Dream. We were doing boutique program after boutique program, none of it connected, and you can see a bunch of them. We put in an early alert. We did a biology placement project. We re-engineered our math developmental education series. We put in peer mentors. We had a Gateway Academy for faculty to look at their course data and then engage in deep course redesign. But we had no integrated efforts. So we need to move from that and this. This is the student experience. Does this look familiar to the students? It's fragmented. You go to different places for different pieces of information. How many times do you tell your story? You student want to share? You probably tell it a lot, right? You're telling it over and over. So we want to move from this and this. So this is the institutional experience. This is the student experience. To this, and this is a man-made canal that was part of a kayaking trip that I took. For some reason, when I'm on vacation, I think that pictures relate to work. But what's interesting about this is that you launch your kayak, you get a map, it's a canal, but at least you know where you're starting and where you're going at the beginning of the journey. What you don't know, and I don't think we'll ever get this perfect, that's the point of this, what you don't know is where the water is shallow, where there are trees that are underneath, where there's a lot of mud, and it's like quicksand. So there are going to be parts of this journey for the students that are going to be challenging. But we as institutions have a responsibility to make it a little bit more cohesive. So this represents the student coming in, and depending on the blend of supports that this institution thinks a student needs, that there's one time that a student tells a story, and all of the supports are woven together. So how do we know that this work, which is a little bit organic and begins with really looking at your data, that it works? I'm going to show you 3 use cases of colleges that have been in Achieving the Dream for a couple of years. And the data goes back because this is lagging data, it's not leading data, meaning graduation rate is lagging data because you're not identifying students that are falling off the track. But this particular college went from 21% graduation rate to 22 to 31% graduation rate. This is their 3-year IPEDS data. They really wanted to dig in and look at first generation of student success. Their 3-year rate is now 38%, and they've set a goal to get to 50% in the next 3 years. This is a college in Washington State, and they use one big lever for change. Now, I'm going to give you 3 different ways that these colleges have moved the needle. They may not work here at Hudson. Pierce decided that faculty was key, and they decided to give all of the student success course data to the faculty, in the hands of the faculty, and to share it with all the faculty, so that each faculty member saw the other faculty members' course success data. And as you can imagine, that created chaos. But the faculty self-organized with some support from administration into teams and really started to look at the data and do course redesign at scale. changed the way that they were delivering material in courses and saw their course success rates start to move, which led to increased completion rates. This college cut the achievement gaps, which is amazing. This is an amazing story because we don't see this kind of compression in the achievement gaps. And this is a college in Chicago, outside of Chicago, and their big lever was to work with their K through 12 system and design a full seamless experience from the 9th grade in their high schools all the way into the first year of experience at this particular community college. So that was their lever. And this institution went from a 10% graduation rate to a 31% graduation rate in 5 years, and used some structural changes. So this college went from a 14-week semester format where students were not given a experience with continuity into 8-week sessions that went from 8-week to 8-week to 8-week to 8-week, so that students could have momentum. And their theory of change was around credit accumulation, that if students stayed enrolled, and even if they were only getting 3 credits each of those 8-week sessions, and they were staying enrolled, they were going to succeed and persist. And that's exactly what happened. The other thing I'd say is that 8 of this year's 10 finalists for the Aspen Prize are ATD colleges. And we don't think that that's a coincidence. And these are colleges that have been called out for high performance, not just on completion rates, but on students leaving the colleges with degrees that have labor market value and they're placed in jobs and careers. So our theory of change, anchored around 7 capacities that we think are really important for a college to even begin the work. So how strong are you as an institution in each of these capacity areas? And we have a tool that helps you evaluate that. And you get your results back in like a little spider diagram. And this helps your coaches to figure out where to begin to have the conversation. So the data with the results of this, we're able to help you begin the conversation. So the second video is from Pierce College. This is the college that shared all the data with the faculty. They're going to talk about their experience with the capacity framework and their student success work.
For a long time, community college missions have focused on access. And we've come to realize very clearly that access does not guarantee anything for students.
We were looking at our data and we realized that 20% of our students weren't making it after the first quarter.
We know part-time students don't do as well as full-time students. We know students who are on Pell Grants don't do as well as students who are not on financial aid. Once you look at those groups, you can't ignore it anymore.
We needed help. We turned to Achieving the Dream, and it's been the best decision that we have made.
Pierce recognized, looking at their data, that they had some significant gaps in equity in student achievement and went about fixing that in a very deliberate way.
We've given all faculty access to all faculty data.
The administration has given us freedom to innovate. It's more like, this is the data, and what do you think we as an institution can do about it?
Achieving the Dream gave us direction, and it really helped take us to a place where we're very data rich now.
Pierce College is always taking assessments. We like to assess where we are. If not, we have no way to gauge how we're doing.
The institutional capacity assessment tool is a really useful tool for ATD colleges.
It helps provide an opportunity to look at 7 very specific elements of how an institution functions. And because of that framework, it allows you to look at how much capacity do we have in each of those.
It touches on all elements of the college, and what's your capacity to do well by the students?
All of those capacities are fundamental to any kind of widespread institutional change.
The World Cafe gives us an opportunity to kind of sit at a table with people that we don't typically interact with and get their perspective and get their input. It's a dialogue, it's a conversation. That was really important.
It touches everything from how we shape our curriculum to how we engage students at the front desk.
It's allowing us to connect capacity issues to pathway goal issues.
all of those capacities are going to touch pathways, and not in a minor way, in a major way. I mean, from leadership all the way down to engagement.
The highest priority is student success, and that's defined in a lot of different ways.
For Pierce College, they are truly changing the student experience from contact to completion and using the movement to galvanize all of their efforts.
It is one unique, strong, clear student success agenda.
Student success improvements with DTE have been quite remarkable. We have seen the achievement gap close. We have seen overall improvements in student performance.
They are all here for you. They're here to help you. You will succeed. From meeting with my advisor for the first time, dealing with financial aid, Veteran Resource Center.
They're just, support is really there. They're like my backbone to who I am right now today.
This is the pathway most of our students have to a better life. We really do believe that we can build a better world, and education is one of the ways to do it.
So that's the Pierce College story, and they are one of the Aspen Prize finalists this year. So you heard them talk about one more button. Next one. So you heard them talk about pathways. And there are 4 pieces of pathways. And those of you that are thinking about it, New Jersey started a pathways program. You're doing that work. So there are 4 parts of pathways. Clarifying paths to student end goals, helping students choose and enter a pathway, helping students stay on the path, and ensuring that students are learning. Our hypothesis in Achieving the Dream is that you cannot enter this pathways work without having strong institutional fundamentals. You have to have your data. You have to have a strong technology infrastructure. You have to have a focus on equity. You have to have a strong culture of teaching and learning excellence. You have to have strong leadership. To have strong policies and practices that are tied to student success, that aren't competing with each other and sending students all over the place. You have to have this work embedded at the heart of your strategic plan. If those pieces aren't in place and you try to take on guided pathways, our thinking is that you have a harder time. It becomes more of an extreme route than a difficult route. So we are part of the guided pathways movement. We're coming at it from the point of these are the essential conditions you have to have in place to be successful with guided pathways. So you're familiar then with what the different pieces of the work are as they relate to guided pathways. This is an organizing framework that would help you to figure out which strategy you want to push forward first. And ATE would help you figure that out and create a plan for moving this work forward. And you probably know the promise of guided pathways, or at least the hypothesis of guided pathways. And it's a framework that we're still testing and honestly was built on what we learned from Achieving the Dream. So that by creating stronger pathways for students, students will have less excess credits upon graduation. So in Texas, the average community college graduate has earned 90 credits. 90 credits. And those credits don't transfer typically. Think about the time, the dollars of those excess credits for students. So that guided pathways would cut back on excess credits. And one of the first things we'll look at with your data is, do you have issues around excess credits? And we'll try to identify those and see creates a calls to wonder question, why? One of the institutions that I'm working with, I'm actually doing some of the coaching as well as being the CEO of the organization, a college in North Carolina that I'm working with. They did not realize they had an excess credit issue. We started to pull the data. They're at 81 credits for the average community college, average associate degree graduate. So there's a lot of issues there. And those don't include developmental courses that students might have taken. So that's not including the developmental courses. Your time to degree will be compressed, completion rates will go up, and there'll be less churn of credits for students. that students will come in and ideally within that first semester have an experience where they can develop their academic plan all the way through to completion, their financial plan, understand how they're going to finance, what it's going to cost, how they're going to pull in financial aid, how the institution might connect a student to public benefits and other resources that are out there that can help with finances, and understand, maybe identify a career direction, or at least, a cluster of possibilities on careers. So for the students, is that what you get in your first advising experience? Do you know what your educational plan is going to be? Do you know what your costs are going to be for your entire journey? No, right? I mean, that doesn't happen at many community colleges. But if I were to do it over again, that's where I would start. Because that's at the heart of the student experience. So, how do we know, what are the leading indicators, the leading metrics? I've been talking about graduation. Some of the early momentum metrics that we look at with our colleges, how many credits are completed in the first semester in the first year? We really take a look at that. Where are the lost credits? Where are students dropping in that first year? Are students completing their first level of college English and math in their first year? That's almost like a stake in the ground now. We want every student to finish college level English and math in their first year. How many courses are completed and attempted? Persistence, fall to spring. These are some of those early indicators that we help you work through. And always, we're disaggregating by at least gender, ethnicity, race, and Pell status. Now, some colleges don't see a difference in progression between students on Pell and students not on Pell. That might be the case here because so many of your students are on Pell Grants. How many students are on Pell Grants? For some type of financial aid? State, Pell, okay, probably just about everybody. But there are more metrics that matter. So we'll help with other things. I mean, some people say, well, our enrollment's declining, we can't join Achieving the Dream. And I would say, you can't afford not to come into Achieving the Dream. So we are helping colleges with enrollment and new access opportunities. But you can see throughout this lost momentum framework, the things that we're beginning to move to measure. And I would say that the transfer and earning a bachelor's degree is a new metric that we've added for our ATD colleges because we know the bachelor's degree does matter. We also are beginning to look at the cumulative debt that students are acquiring through their journeys in community colleges. And we're trying as hard as we can to get the wage gain data related to a student's program and then placement in a career. We have a report that came out about 6 months ago that we did in combination with Gallup, where we're looking at post-completion outcomes. Are community college graduates thriving in their job? Are they thriving in their community? Are they voting? I mean, things that really contribute to the community. So we're looking at this as a life cycle of metrics, not just degree completion. But we have to start with the degree completion before we can get to those life cycle metrics. So the student success agenda that I talked about earlier is really evolving. We have many of our colleges that are in phase 1 of the work. They're focusing on student completion. But we see others now looking at the ROI for the student and measuring beyond completion around the student's economic gains. And then finally, we have some leading colleges that are looking at the community's well-being. Does it make a difference that Hudson County Community College is located here? And what are the indicators in the community that it makes a difference? So the last slide, this reminds me of the book Boys in the Boat. Anybody read Boys in the Boat? So there's a part in Boys in the Boat where they talk in detail. The author talks in detail about how the boat is crafted. It's the wooden boat, the craftsmanship of the boat, getting the boat, the vessel, exactly designed in a way where it can have optimal performance, and how important that is. That really stuck with me, because that's the foundation of a college. You know, do you have your fundamentals in place to begin this work? Do you have the vessel where you can start the work? And can ATD help you to get that vessel well designed? But then the rest of it is, you know, having the boat filled with rowers who are working in sync, who have a shared understanding of where they're going, what the destination is, shared understanding of student success, and are equally enthusiastically engaged in getting there. And that's the college community and the students. Because the students have a role in this work too. The students have an investment in accountability just like the institution does. So can we get Hudson to this kind of rowing in sync? And how might Achieving the Dream help you to do that? So I would encourage you, if the college is thinking about attending the upcoming Dream Conference in Long Beach, California, it is, when I was participating in it, and even now as the CEO of the organization, I can say over and over, I hear that this is the best conference that there is around really engaging in practice. So I'll open it up for questions. So we said it would be up to 90 minutes, so we're almost, we're not there, we have plenty of time for questions and answers. Questions? Yes?
How do you measure the quality of student data? Maybe someone's not maybe like degree because going on a person-wise, how do you find it?
Okay, so it's a great question. The question is about qualitative data, and I have been very heavy on quantitative data. We do ask our colleges to get the student voice right in the middle of the redesign work. And we do that in a number of ways. So we look at the quantitative data, but then to qualitatively understand the student experience, we do things like focus groups. We've done work with our Working Student Success Network where we had 19 colleges in 4 states really understand the student financial experience, their health, their transportation needs, whether they're home secure, whether they're food insecure. Many of our colleges have moved toward an assessment instrument at the point of application where they ask students a number of questions around their housing status, their transportation status, their how financially secure they are, if they're taking care of an elderly parent, if they have children, and they're entering that data into a holistic student kind of support system so that advisors have access to it, so that when you sit down with a student and you do advising, you can think about course load and other factors. Colleges are then deploying transportation cards and other non-academic supports to those students. So there's a lot that we do around that qualitative aspect. It's really, really important. The other piece that is important is what happens inside the classroom qualitatively. You know, can we take a look at teaching practice in a reflective way and help faculty to really look at their course data, but then look at where students are beginning to drop and think about redesigning their approach to assessments, for example. But getting the student voice in the middle of the work is absolutely important. That's what I love that there are so many students here. Other questions?
I have a question. So if ADC collaborates with Hudson to improve, how can you improve Hudson now and change the statistics for Hudson in the future?
How can we change the statistics for Hudson in the future? That will be, our support would be to help you, first of all, identify where your gaps are. So does anybody know the Hudson story from a student success perspective? Anybody tell me what do you think the current state of the student experience is using data? Okay, so we would help you craft that story. That's step one. And then we would help you determine whether that story is a different story for different groups of students. And then we would help you determine where to begin. But we would not do the boutique interventions. You know, we would think about, are there things at scale that the college can do differently that would touch every student and improve every student's experience? And then we would look at some programs that would also be scaled, that would support, you know, different subgroups of students. But one of the things that is talking about the student entry experience. If that was redesigned and every student had a different experience when they stepped the first day, or the first day they came here aspiring to enroll, and that experience could be changed for every student, and you knew your point of contact, and you had your academic degree plan, and you had an advisor who was working with you, and not just on schedule building, but on life support, other, you know, all of the holistic needs that you have. And you knew you could go to that person, that was your go-to person. For financial support, you know, advice, all of those kinds of wraparound supports. I think that can make a difference. Yes?
So basically can we go back to the slide where the mess of what the student goes through?
Yeah, the fragmented journey.
Fragmented.
Yeah.
So that right there, I am a prodigy of Hudson's finest, and that is what I remember experiencing. That actually was the screen before, because it was years ago. That was definitely the first one, yeah. That was definitely what I went through. This is what I see for Hudson, at Hudson. The next screen, that's the role model of the program that I work for, which is EOF.
Yes, EOF, but what if you could scale EOF?
Right, well, I don't want everybody taking our jobs away.
Well, that's one of the EOF is one of those models, though. I'm so glad you made that leap.
But we just came from a conference, and throughout the state, it's the same thing with every college. How can ATD get us as a family there? Because we're already doing it, but obviously, you know, with staff, you know, you need the staff, you need the resources, and there's so much that the state can give us financially as to support us. But if Hudson was all on the same plane,
yeah.
Not that I want anybody taking my job, because I love my job.
No, that won't happen. And so, well, and you know, so I remember EOF from when I was at Camden, and I was the VP where EOF reported into. How many students are in your EOF program here? How many total? 100. So 150, 140? What percentage of the entire student population is that? 10%? No. 8%? 3%? Yeah. And are the student completion rates of EOF students stronger than the student completion rates of the population in general?
I would say yes.
You would say yes, or do you know yes?
I know yes.
Okay.
Reporting yes.
Okay. So you have then, if you use appreciative inquiry as an approach, you have a model there that you can say, okay, what makes that work? And is what makes it work scalable? And what then would it take to scale it? And it will not eliminate the EOF jobs. It will only make the EOF jobs much more valuable to the organization. Yes?
I am the Associate Dean of Student Success, and what we are trying to do is take our disjointed previous advisement piece, and this semester we have been piloting case management based on the EOF format, but we have a long way to go.
So what are you learning from that pilot right now?
Right now, the most surprising thing that we just have innovated this semester is individual appointments to cut the line, and the numbers each week of appointments are going up.
That's great.
And it's more of an integrated. When I came on, I want to break down the walls between my counselors so that they know advisement, they know career. Many of my advisors also have counseling backgrounds.
Very good. And how many students is your pilot touching now?
I want to say 12, 18, which I can't remember the number right at this point, but we took the first time full-time students for this semester.
Okay. And do you have an evaluation methodology associated to the pilot?
Every single week I get data from the case managers.
Okay.
Including academic planning, interviews, telephone, all of those kinds of things. So I think we have started many things, but I think the biggest pieces was there were a lot of disjointed pieces that need to be closing the loop.
So one of the things that Achieving the Dream does, we have the leadership coach, the data coach. We ask our colleges to form what's called a core team. The core team typically, the size varies depending on the institution, but the core team includes representatives from all the constituency groups in the college, plus some of the specific offices that are probably going to be involved in a lot of the redesign work. Students are also typically on the core team, and the leadership coach works with the core team. We also ask you to form a data team so that you can begin to organize your data, and the data team looks at the data, presents insights to the core team, and the two collectively figure out what approach you want to use to begin to move forward the work. And do not think about Achieving the Dream as another initiative. It is an integrator. It should help to pull together the pilots that you have in action. One of the things we ask our colleges to do is write down how many pilots you have in action around student success work. Tell us what it is, describe it, tell us how many students it's touching, and tell us whether you know it's successful or not. And we really work with the core teams to say, okay, this one looks like it has promise and maybe we move it forward. This one, is there a way to move that into this so that we don't have all these disjointed pilots going on at the same time. The other thing that's different now than 10 years ago, we know more about what's working nationally and what's not working. So our colleges don't have to pilot as much as they used to pilot. You can start things off at scale. Now it's hard to pilot a full redesign of an advising process at an institution this big. It's hard to scale it from day one. You sometimes need to pilot to understand where the human resource pressure points are going to be, where some of the technology pressure points might be, because the technology systems have to be well aligned with your student process, and there are issues there that's a whole. We help our ATD colleges navigate through that, with just how to make a decision about which technology to select. But it's not about the technology. It's about the process and the people. The technology just enables you to make your design work. Other questions? Yes.
You mentioned that it can sometimes, there's only different focus areas. You mentioned sometimes it can take several years for a lot of results to reveal those from this process. I was wondering if you speaking of data, if you have data you can give us in terms of when it comes to enrollment, completion, persistence, transfer, some of these really important areas, like kind of before and after for schools that come on board with Achieving the Dream, what does it look like?
Yeah. So I tried to give you 3 of those use cases. So when at Achieving the Dream, we do not aggregate all this data up because we can't. We can't compare one college's journey in this to another college's. Everything is local and contextual. So what we do is we look at the trajectory of our colleges from when they join Achieving the Dream, through their journey with Achieving the Dream. So just like I showed some of these use cases, so across the board, these are some examples of increases, and you'll see that's 5 years, this is 4 years, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years. If we were to start work with Hudson, we'd use the baseline year as probably, well, we couldn't use the baseline year as fall 19 because the work we'd just be figuring out what to start. So probably fall 20. And then by fall 23, spring 24, we should see a pretty significant uptick around credit accumulation in the first year, persistence fall to spring, fall to fall, more students taking college level math and English in their first year. I mean, some of those leading indicators, we should see some growth. We should see equity gaps begin to shrink. And we should see completion beginning to go up. One of the things that I didn't talk about with guided pathways is really looking at program enrollment and program completion and disaggregating data by programs for students to see whether some programs, just to look at the enrollment and completion patterns by different types of students to begin to look at program issues. So that, and you probably have a program review process, but it would be about integrating all of that data in a systematic way into program review.
Sorry, those were obviously the slides that came up after I briefly stepped out. So,
oh, sorry.
But do you notice any differences in the results when it comes to, you mentioned urban, suburban, and rural?
Yeah. I'm going to make an observation that's not fully data informed, which is not what I'm supposed to do. So, urban institutions are typically larger and more complex, very often unionized. The journey around student success is different for urban community colleges than it is for a small, and size matters too, so for a small, rural, one campus college where you can see more rapid results. So this college here is a fairly small, single campus institution, and you can see how their results just really spike up. So we do see that at some of the best performing rural community colleges. We don't see the spiked rates like that at a large complex urban. It's more gradual because the headwinds are stronger. The headwinds are stronger. Yes?
Hi. So, 2 points. One, when this is a big investment.
Yes.
If Hudson County was to go down this road. And, so when you get involved in any kind of big investment, you want to see some pros and cons. And looking around, for information, I couldn't get a lot of neutral information about achieving the dream. So one, I would like to know if some more of that is available so that we could make a more objective research into that. And then 2, you've told us a lot about what and how achieving the dream does. Why do you think Hudson would benefit from achieving the dream? What do you know about us that you think we're ready for this?
So the first question, as you're doing your investigation around whether to participate or not, we certainly can give you a list of colleges that have been in ATD and those that have been in ATD and left ATD. And please, we'll give you the names of there are a couple of key people that you need to talk to when you do this work. One would be the president. Another would be who the core team and data team leaders are, because those are typically the people kind of in the middle of the work. They're usually faculty members. And I think getting a faculty perspective in addition to an administrative perspective is really important. It's interesting, the colleges that leave ATD often end up back in ATD. So we probably want to give you one of those colleges as well. the pressures on our colleges are so different. And whether a college is able to really put the work of student success at the center of their work is a struggle. And you'll hear that when you talk to these colleges. So it is really a very personalized and contextualized decision. Why Hudson? So I don't know your data. I typically, when I make these presentations, I know your data. But I can only pull, the only data I really could pull for you guys is off of the federal government's scorecard, which is not data that I think you would want me to refer to. It's not rich enough, right? It's not contextualized enough. But I do know that you have a large percentage of full-time students, much more percentage of full-time students, the mix, much different than most community colleges. I think that that's an asset and puts you in a great position to have accelerated opportunities around student success. I mean, 80% of your students are full-time. That's, that it worries me that you don't have higher completion rates based on that. So that's one observation. 80% of your students are on Pell Grants. Their financial security is keeping many of them from being able to continue toward their degree. I think there are opportunities to look more deeply at that and for Achieving the Dream to help students here with what I call holistic student supports. That's not even, this is just, I'm jumping already to what some of the strategies might be based on what I see. You're in a community that is highly dependent on the talent pipeline that this college offers. Taking a look at what the program and labor market requirements are in this community, aligning your programs to that, getting students rapidly engaged in those careers, I think there's a big opportunity. I think there's an opportunity for Hudson to ask a bigger question of themselves, and this is bigger than completion. It would be something like, what if the question wasn't about increasing completion, but what if the question was about addressing generational poverty in this community? What would that look like? And I think the ATD work can move you toward that kind of big calls to wonder question. Just observing this group, seeing how engaged you are and listening and the number of students here, I mean, I can feel the energy. Achieving the Dream does galvanize communities, and it's around a singular cause, and then it's around the reason that we're here, student success. So those are some of my quick observations about the why.
Great.
Yes.
I understand guided pathways, and I love the idea, and I know we participate somewhat in that model. But what happens when our students change their major? That is, it just is it's frustrating on both sides.
Yeah. Well, we know even with guided pathways, they're going to change their major. It's just, can we, if we offer supports earlier in their time with us, cut down on the number of times they change their major? Can we cut down on the churn?
Yeah, and they're exposed to new things.
Yes.
So it's to be expected that as someone grows intellectually, they're going to change their major.
Mm-hmm. So I don't think guided pathways is not, it's interesting. It's one of the challenges of the model. There's this expectation that we can get students on a path, they can earn 9 credits in their major in that first year and off they'll go, right? That's the hypothesis. And we know that that's not necessarily the way that it works. But I think being more intentional, guided pathways is about being more intentional with helping students select at least maybe not a specific major, but a cluster, an area of interest. Community College of Philadelphia is doing really interesting work around communities of interest. So they're not like specifically saying pick a major, they're saying pick a community of interest. So there's a bunch of majors clustered together. And here's a first-year experience course customized to that particular area of interest. So students can really begin to explore. So if it's health, if it's STEM, if it's transfer, just transfer without really knowing exactly what, psych, soc, that cluster of social sciences. And that seems to be, it's a model that a lot of us are looking at and studying. So it's a good point on guided pathways. It's a framework. Guided pathways is a framework. It's a framework that's evolved from what we've learned from Achieving the Dream and other student success efforts. It has not been evaluated yet. We're all jumping into it, but we don't know if the framework actually is going to work. It's another evolution. Yes?
I'm curious about the causality of the impact of Achieving the Dream on the success rate of the program. And whether, are there any colleges that have achieved the dream, something without the
without being in the dream. Well, let me go to this Aspen list. Well, those are the 8 of 10. There's 2 that are not in Achieving the Dream that are on this list. There's not been an Aspen winner that's not been Achieving the Dream. But I think you can achieve the dream without achieving the dream. I think it requires this. It requires an understanding of your fundamentals. What are your strengths as an institution? What are your weaknesses in those capacity areas? And are you intentionally working to build those capacities? And a leadership team with a lot of input from the college community can figure that out without achieving the dream. The second thing is that you have a framework to guide the student success work. There's lots of frameworks out there. You can pull one off a shelf, use it, adopt it, adapt it, begin the work. And the third thing is that you have a leader or a leadership team or a college community theory of change that you think what's really going to move the success rates at Hudson is redesigning the student experience from entry, through advising all the way through. Or maybe the lever of change is with the faculty. It's in centering teaching and learning in the reform work, but you have to have a theory to change. But yes, you can do the work without achieving the dream. What colleges tell us, the biggest value they get from achieving the dream is that they get these coaches that come in and make paying attention to student success a regular habit. It's easy in this work to forget the why. We get fragmented. We have lots of competing interests as institutions. So yeah, you can do it without achieving the dream. And as far as the causality goes, do we know what fundamental intervention or scaled strategy is really working? No. It's a combination of factors, and it's so contextual and so localized, so into the culture and fabric of the institutions that we work with, that it's really hard to make that kind of argument.
I think what my fellow sociologist was asking about with the causality question is that, some of us are wary about, and you said it already, about just looking at the conclusion rate. There's a stellar college in New Jersey that will go unnamed that claims to have, within a 2-year period, this stellar increase in completion rate. But most of it is due to the launch and the expansion of certificate programs. So you can make your needle spike really easily, and maybe a lot of those are meaningful completions where they go out and find meaningful work and transfer, etc. Maybe not. Some of it is just completion spike. So I think that's part of the question. The other question that he didn't ask was whether students, because he asked me before, whether students can come to the ATP conference in February.
Yes.
Because that's really key.
Students, we encourage teams to bring students with them. And there's a student voices that are infused throughout the whole conference. So yes.
And then, just to end, but I have the unique position of being the accreditation liaison.
Oh, wow.
And we're finishing our self-study, and I can answer part of the question that went unanswered, which is what is the story here? And the story is about a 10 to 11% annual completion rate taken out of context. So that's in a 3-year window of time. When you move it up to 6 years, because of our massive ESL population and foundations population, it jumps into the mid and high 40s. But our 3-year completion rate.
For associate degree completion, 40s after 6 years?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, so give us enough time and things change a lot from the 3-year rate. But, very unique college, and that's why I said before, you know, you asked about the panic zones. When we get compared to the small rural colleges and universities, and we just get part of the landscape of higher education.
Well, we don't use comparison data when we come in and look at your data. We're looking at your students, the ones you're serving in front of you. There are colleges that will pick cohorts to kind of compare to see, and I don't know who would be in your cohort. I mean, that might be a worthwhile exercise to determine, are there colleges across the country like Hudson that could be in a cohort that you would want to compare to. But you start with understanding your own data and longitudinally comparing yourself 1 year to the next, and disaggregating the data to see if different students are having different experiences.
We're also looking at data analytics partners, and do you find it helpful to start with a new data analytics partner concurrently or close to point in time, or think about waiting on those? It's stressing me out.
Taking a deep breath. I'm working as a coach with a college that is just into ATD that decided to bring in an analytics partner at the same time that they started ATD. And it's messy because the analytics partner wants to build data and data sets around a different destination than the student success data. The IR area is underdeveloped at this particular institution. So I understand why the leadership wanted to bring in an analytics partner, but it's definitely been too early. Now that's for that particular institution. I can't answer that unless I know how strong your current in-house data capacity is. And would you be able to get the early data that we would be asking for you to, we have a kickoff experience that is every June, and usually at kickoff, when the college teams come, we ask them to come with their data, their early progression metrics data, some of the data I showed up here, and disaggregated, and longitudinal, so we can look at it over a period of time. Many of our colleges have a hard time getting to that data, so I don't know whether you'll have a hard time getting to that data or not.
Karen, let me ask one more question, and then I think it's time to bring it to a close, although it's been fantastic.
Yes.
Could you comment just briefly on some of the work you're doing, Achieving the Dream is doing with other organizations like foundations, the Aspen Institute, the Community College Research Center, et cetera?
So we're part of a collective collaborative that has a number of organizations working together on this work. So we are partners with the Community College Research Center. I was just there yesterday talking to them about partnering with us on a new research agenda around teaching and learning, and this idea that ATD colleges that have centers for teaching and learning that are really embedded in the culture of the institution are having an influence on developing a culture of teaching and learning excellence. So we're probably going to start a research program with CCRC in that. They're a research partner on our adjunct faculty work. They're a research partner on our open education resources work. We have a partnership with the Aspen Institute where we're working with Aspen to develop the next generation of community college leaders. We've helped develop that curriculum. We help deliver the curriculum. We have a number of ATD colleges that are represented in that work. We do a lot of work collectively with the Aspen Institute. We have a service out of ATD for more mature Achieving the Dream colleges where we work with Aspen and ATD, and we come in and do an assessment of where the institution is after 10 years in ATD and what lever they need to move into. So recently we did that assessment at a community college in North Carolina, and they're going to begin to refocus their work on faculty engagement, really trying to get faculty deeply involved. A lot of the work sometimes is around the edges without faculty involved. We're involved with HCCC and the Pathways work. We're involved with Jobs for the Future and the Student Success Centers. We're doing a lot of work with the Student Success Center in New Jersey. Let's see, who else are we involved in? We're beginning to work with some of the four-year college and university associations who now are beginning to understand that transfer success for community college students is really important. So APLU, in particular, is working with ATD on looking at transfer metrics and creating a transfer-ready university so that universities really understand what it takes to help community college transfer students to be successful and get a degree. Our OER work, we have lots of partners in the open education resource work. Do you have any OER courses, or are you experimenting a little bit with that?
We're very much wanting to.
Yeah. So we have a lot of other partners in that space. So probably any acronym organization that you name, we have a partnership with of some sort.
So ladies and gentlemen, this has been phenomenal. Karen, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
For me, just listening to this conversation is inspirational and a real point of pride. And so I look forward to continuing to engage in the dialogue, and I'm committing us to taking a team to Achieving the Dream.
Excellent.
So if anybody's interested in going, let me know. I can tell you, we've had students at my previous institution actually on panels before 2,000 people talking about their community college experience. It's incredibly inspirational. Karen, thank you. PEC will stay here now to talk a little more about the details. Have a great day, everyone.